Aguirre.
Here. I know we have some recognitions, but besides recognitions, do we have any citizens here tonight who want to address the board with citizen input? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on. So we do have some special guests here this evening. I think let's bring up the husband to introduce. So I know we've got the Carl Sandburg boys volleyball teams.
Yes.
Tell us who else we have here.
All right. So tonight we are honoring the 7th grade boys volleyball team, which came in 2nd place in our conference this season. Coach Diaz unfortunately can't be here tonight due to a commitment at the high school. And we are also honoring our 8th grade boys volleyball team, which came in 1st in our conference, which was very exciting. And again, Coach Sanzer couldn't be here due to a death in his family, but we are really proud of the boys and all their hard work. This season, they had early morning practices, after school practices, they were just really dedicated and worked hard at all of their practices. Last year, it was a rough season for us. Neither one of our teams actually made it to the finals, which is, I think, the first time in Carl Sandburg history. And I think our 8th graders especially, they took that and then this year they ran with it and they just put in so much hard work and did a really incredible job. I also want to just shout out, we don't have these teams here, but our athletics program at Sandburg has grown so much over the last several years. Our soccer team this season came in 1st place. Our girls 8th grade volleyball team came in 2nd place. So it's just been really exciting to see how hard the kids are working in their after curricular activities, but also in their academics, because they have to be eligible in order to be able to play. So they are working hard in all of these areas. Because Sanzer and Diaz aren't here, I would also like to honor them because they can't tell me to stop. But Diaz, if you have ever talked to him, he can tell you.
Can I interrupt for a second? I think a perfect backdrop, because there's so many people here, would be to see the 7th and 8th grade boys that are on the team stand behind.
All the way up. Like, you want them grouped together by team?
Yeah, I'll try to get individual pictures later. Finish one.
Further.
Free tiger.
All right, I gotta have one to send to me. Wait, I can't see you. Can you?
Yeah, where?
No, you're good. Go. I got it.
Okay. So if you have ever talked to Diaz about volleyball, he can tell you the game-winning play of every game he has ever coached. And it's really kind of phenomenal. I don't even know what I had for lunch today, but he can tell you literally every detail. So he helped me and got me some of these stats. In the last 22 years, so 44 combined seasons, and this is just for boys volleyball. If you remember John MD, when he coached, he had a 47-4 career. Coach Fanzer, over his career, has had a 347-29 career. And then Diaz has had 311-23 career, which is a combined total of 705 wins to 56 losses, which is really And then one last really cool stat that these boys all get to now be a part of. Their combined totals, we've had 29 first place teams, 7 second place, 4 third, 2 that have come in fourth, and only 2 teams that did not place in that 22-year period. So just really awesome the work that they've done.
Yeah.
Good job, guys. Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming and allowing us to hear about your accomplishments and to congratulate you ourselves. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well done, Joe. I'd like to thank Sue. Our kids go get the art like thank you for your support and seeing them, their development. It means the world to us. Thank you. We're looking forward to what see they do the next 4 to 5 years when they're still in my line. So, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. But I can't thank you. Thanks for Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so continuing on with our meeting, we've got the code of conduct section for Eric to update us.
Tonight, we are on code number 9. Code number 9 states, I will respectfully listen to those who communicate with the board, seeking to understand their views while recognizing my responsibility to represent the interest of the entire community. The author goes on to say, this is one of the most important items on this list. It means listen, redirect as appropriate, and don't forget that you are not the board, but a part of it. Respect board action and don't use your position to become an inappropriate sounding board. The chain of command exists for a very viable and important reason, so you must know it and use it.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Okay. Thank you, Eric. So moving on to the District 75 reports. We're going to first hear from the business office.
Good evening. For your review and consideration this evening, we have the annual financial report. The annual financial report is a standardized document that meets state independent auditing and reporting requirements for public elementary, secondary school, unit districts, etc. The AFR includes funds, account groups, and other components that, when taken together, make up all of the school district audit requirements and provide levels of assurance to administration, the Board of Education, staff, and other interested parties. Our audit this year came back with a solid report overall. There were 2 areas noted for improvement, and they were timeliness of both the bank accounts and the month-end reconciliations. The items are intertwined. As you'll recall, we had a bit of a transition in accounting last year, and were short-staffed for the better part of last year. The lack of staffing did play a key role in these noted concerns. I'm happy to share that we are now fully staffed with an amazing team, T overseeing them, and I'm confident that we will not see these concerns next year. It's also noteworthy that the finance department did receive 2 awards over this last year. The Association of School Business Officials and International Association granted the district the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting for our annual comprehensive financial report. And also the Government Finance Officers Association, otherwise known as GFOA, awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. Both awards speak to the thorough and transparent budgeting reporting that is done within the department. These reports do run 1 year behind, but if you're interested, you can see them posted online. Last and noteworthy, within the audit, you'll see that there was an issuance of $4.3 million in general obligation bonds and funds then were transferred into our capital projects fund for 2023. That allocates just under $6 million in the capital projects funds, and those funds are earmarked for the theater at Carlson. Happy to answer any questions.
Have any specific questions? Okay.
I do have questions. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about some of the difficulties that were encountered during the audit that are stated in here. There was mention of that the commencement of the audit was delayed because the state and federal grants weren't yet submitted, and then that the completion of the audit was also delayed because of either the lack of availability of expected information or availability of client personnel or unwillingness to by management to provide timely information. And I know you had mentioned like staffing turnover and some issues throughout the year, and I'm sure that, you know, goes into that, but I was wondering if there was anything else.
It really is that straightforward and that complicated all at the same time. The first time that the auditor arrived here was in early August. We had just finished a year and we were in the process of starting a new year. We were down. Actually, we didn't even have an admin assistant at that point. We had another staff member that was transitioning out at the same time. So we were down 2 humans at that moment. And so he came and there was information that he was seeking and we weren't able to compile it all and move forward with getting payroll done and the budget all at the same time. So there just wasn't enough capacity. But again, that is all intertwined. And by the time that he circled back that second time around, we were able to, with the additional capacity, because we had humans, isn't that wonderful? We were able to provide all the documents that he was seeking. And then we got the audit, and really then all of the pieces with what was mentioned there and what I spoke to, which is the bank reconciliations and all those, they're all due to the fact that we just didn't have enough humans or capacity at that moment to provide everything on the spot when they arrived the first time.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And then right below that, there was a section about corrected and uncorrected misstatements. And I want to first start by saying I know that they were all corrected, so that's a positive.
Certainly.
But I just wanted to share my concern that those misstatements were occurring, especially because they're all in regards to reallocation of dollars. And, you know, with regards to shared services, we put such an emphasis on that reallocation of dollars and how it's being spent. So
Absolutely.
wanted to make sure that I, you know, shared that concern with the board and make sure that we're, you know, on top of that.
When does this usually get done? The audit?
The audit, they usually come in just after the year ends. So August or September, they'll come to visit. And they have quite a large list of documents that they're looking for. And we work to our very best ability to provide them all. So again, I'm confident that we have all the documents they need. We have the humans that can find those documents, because that's the other part. There just wasn't enough depth to even go seek some of them because there just wasn't enough time. So, again, I'm truly confident that it's going to be fantastic next year.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear the report of human services.
Good evening. I am here to introduce the FY25 staffing proposal. Slide. So the assessment and allocation process takes into consideration several different factors, highlighted by the projected student enrollment, current staffing and the licensure and endorsements of those staffing, current and anticipated vacancies, the collective bargaining agreement, and then current, anticipated, and expiring funding sources. The staffing is sequenced by the principals, the assistant principals, the two student service coordinators, the director of human resources, the superintendent, deputy superintendent, and then the assistant superintendent of student services and the assistant superintendent of finance and operations. Next slide, please. So this is the FY 25 student or FY 24 student enrollment in comparison to the anticipated FY 25 student enrollment. You can see that we're not anticipating any changes in student enrollment at Lincoln, a very small anticipated increase at Washington, a small decrease at Mechanics Grove, and then a slightly larger decrease at Carl Sandburg. Next slide, please. So how does that then coordinate or speak to our FTE by building? So last year we had FTE of 14.10 at Lincoln, and we anticipate that to stay the same. At Washington, we had 57.1 last year, and we are anticipating a very, very slight increase of 0.1 FTE at Washington this coming year. Mechanics Grove will see an increase of 2 FTE, and then Carl Sandburg will remain unchanged. Next slide, please. So the specific changes are as follows. So we have an increase of 2.1 FTE for multi-building support. So what this is an increase of 0.1 increase for certified staff. This is a reading interventionist. And then we have 2 new classified staff, which are paraprofessionals that are going to be one-to-one aides at students at 2 buildings. And then lastly, we have an increase of 1 FTE at Mechanics Grove, and then the corresponding decrease of 1 FTE at Washington based on the premise that those sections of students will be shifting from one school to the next. Any questions?
How did we go down by 19 of 2 schools, but only go up by, I thought one of the slides said
The
16.
student enrollment.
Students, that was
Yes.
the students.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That helps. I was trying to figure out how the net works, but okay.
I know in the personnel report, there are some resignations
Mhm.
coming up. Do we have a date that we ask them to let us know if they're moving on somewhere else? And do we anticipate any further resignations?
So we can't always anticipate when staff are going to leave because that's dependent upon the hiring cycles of other schools. When we do have a resignation that we do anticipate, we do ask for it as early as possible so that the board can take action. So then we don't miss the window of time in being able to post for that position and hire a good qualified candidate.
For teachers, the contract does specify a date that they have to let us know. I think it was that his question.
Kind of bad.
Yes, so the April 5th, pardon.
Isn't that for retirement?
Well, for retirement, but April 15th is a Magic School Code deadline in which we would need to communicate to teachers and often when they would communicate.
We need to tell them.
Right, we would need to tell them, but we are on time early in making sure that we're getting this to you and these things settled so that we can recruit a vibrant market.
I do have a question regarding the student enrollment by building on the one that says 509, and then for the 25 school year 493 minus 16. So 16 people will,
16 students.
16 students, I'm sorry. Okay, my mistake, thanks.
That was my.
I thought it was,
And yeah, and that's probably, I imagine, going into the high school. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now here's the report of student services.
All right, so as we were able to update you in, I believe our last board meeting presentation and yet another time, I believe in the fall, our Washington school has a school improvement plan that's really robust, and we've been doing a lot of exciting work together on this plan. And so without further ado, I'd love to introduce those who will be presenting. Mrs. Drake, our principal, Mrs. Morley, our assistant principal, and our student services coordinator, Cindy Samantha, who are going to share the good work that's happening at Washington.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having us here this evening to talk about the SIP plan. I would like to start by thanking the members of my SIP team that are here tonight. We have Jill Unger, Director of Teaching and Learning. We have Michael Crow, our occupational therapist. We have Nancy Hanson, our dual language reading interventionist, Kristen Kincaid, our English reading interventionist, Tanya Fergus, the MG principal, Sarah Cacciatore and Jamie, of course, and then Sunny Morley and Cindy Samantha. And it's been a pleasure to work with this team to get this whole thing started. Next slide, please. So this is planning year 2024. We are well into it. It began in October with our designation of targeted status being released. We have applied for the grant and received it. We have built a SIP team and we have developed a SIP plan with action items that we're ready to present to you guys. And then our next step will be to present it to ISB. See how long it takes that to go back and forth before it's all solidified, and then have an approved SIP plan ready to go by next fall. Next slide, please. So the first thing we did was we built this SIP team. We wanted to make sure that there was representation from both Washington and MG so that we were working together on this. We made sure that we have dual language, monolingual, special ed, reading interventionists, administrators, and everything on it. So these are all the members of our SIP team. So then the first task that they really give us is to figure out why. Okay. So we did a root cause analysis. We've had some really great, powerful conversations about what put us here, and in-depth conversations using these questions as our guiding questions. So we started with our data. So this house, I know we've seen it before. This is the school report card house of data. There are a couple of things that are really important to remember as we start through this. First of all, kindergarten doesn't count. It's not mandated and required by the state of Illinois, so it doesn't count for us or against us. The second piece is that both our proficiency data and our growth data come from IAR test data at Mechanics Grove with their 3rd and 4th graders. Okay, so which is why we're working in collaboration with Mrs. Fergus and her team to make sure that we're one big team tackling this adventure. Our data does show that out of 100 points for chronic absenteeism, we only got 41.98 points as a whole building. Out of 100 points for math growth, we got 38.35. And out of 100 points for reading growth, we got 62.45. Next slide, please. So this slide shows you as a building where we fell in comparison to the other school districts in the state of Illinois, and what the cut scores were for both targeted status and commendable and exemplary. Cindy Samantha is going to talk about our children with disabilities subgroup.
Okay, so our children's with disabilities subgroup, first I want to say that our children's with disabilities bring so many strengths and assets to our school community. However, many of the categories in this house speak directly to some areas that many children with disabilities find quite challenging. So when we're looking at their data, we were able to obtain 100 points of the 18, we were able to obtain 18.37 of 100 points on absenteeism. We were able to obtain 19 out of 100 points for math and growth, and we were able to obtain 15 out of 100 points for our ELA proficiency data. Next slide. So when we look at where they fell in terms of the distribution with other children with disabilities in the state, You can see they are kind of just to the left of the kind of traditional bell curve looking scatter plot, which is why they landed in the targeted status zone. Okay, turn these back over to Stephanie.
You can stay right there.
Oh, okay.
Okay, next slide, please, Anna. Thank you. So we looked at our data. Our data told us attendance is biggie. So just so you know what our data is right now. Currently, we have 44 of our 468 students that are already chronically absent for the year. We have another 87 students that are approaching chronic absenteeism. So what is chronic absenteeism? The state defines chronic absenteeism as any absence. Yep, we know there's approved absences and unexcused absences. They all count. So although that they allow for those absences for the school report card, they all sort of count against us. So what we learned when we dug deep into our absences, we need to encourage vacations during scheduled non-attendance days. We need to continue to prevent the spread of disease. And if you've been around K2s, we sneeze, we cough, we put our hands everywhere, we touch everything. That's just part of it. We also need to look at our children whose families are not calling them in absence and reach out more frequently to help them. Because our goal is to help them overcome whatever the barrier is. And then overall, we gotta motivate people to come to school. Next slide, please. So then we took a good look at our math. That was our next big area, particularly with our students with disabilities. And the first thing we noticed is that we need to talk more about our data so that we have and can make instructional decisions using that data. Cindy?
So looking at our children's with disabilities, many times math is a relative area of strength for them. So often they're not receiving an individualized goal or specialized instruction in this area, but they still benefit from differentiated instruction and accommodations and modifications. And so really kind of looking deeply at those and ensuring that those supports are in place for them so they can be as most successful in an area that's relative strength for them.
And then the last piece is we're working really closely with our Department of Teaching and Learning because we're in the middle of a math curriculum review and there's a nice huge plan to address math and all the professional development and needs that will come with that. Thank you, Anna.
Okay, really examining our data and letting that cycle of using our data to drive our instruction continues to be an area that we want to focus on within our teachers and our multi-tiered system of support process. So looking at those formative assessments to help drive instruction, looking at our summative assessments for where we need to reteach, just that continuous cycle of looking at those assessments to drive our instruction so that we can get the best outcomes for all of our students with and without disabilities. We also have identified math intervention as an area needing support at Washington. So we plan to shift to provide some intervention in that particular subject area next year.
So once we knew the why, the conversation switched to how are we gonna fix it? What are we gonna do? So we started with setting 3 SMART goals. So goal number 1 is chronic absenteeism. By May 2025, the total number of students at Washington who are deemed to be chronically absent will decrease by 10% as measured by daily attendance. Currently, if all of those kids that are on track, so worst case scenario, fall into chronic absenteeism, we should end the year around 28% of our students chronically absent as defined to the school report card. Why start here? Gets us the most amount of points fast. If we can get more points in chronic absenteeism, that overall score goes up.
Okay, goal 2 has 2 parts. The first part is targeting our children with disabilities. So by the end of our school year 2026, we would like 60% of children with disabilities in grades 1st through 4th will meet their SGP on STAR Math from fall to spring. We're about 30% currently with our children with disabilities, so we're looking to increase that to 60% of them.
So then we don't want to just look at our students with disabilities. We want to look at our whole building and MG students and just continue to improve all of our data. So we set a goal for 60% of all students in grades 1 through 4 to meet their SGP on STAR Math from fall to spring. So all of our plans associated with this goal also include MG. Next slide, please.
Can you remind me what SGP stands for?
Sorry, student growth percentile. It's the difference from the first time they took the test to the second time they took the test and calculated by STAR. There's a pretty lengthy process they do to calculate that, but each child has one.
And it's, if you go back, can you go back to the one? Oh, there you go. And they take this test in 3rd and 4th, or they take this test starting in
So,
1st?
so
grade?
this test starts in kindergarten
Mhm.
and goes all the way through 8th grade.
And is this test only provided in English or in English and Spanish?
This test is provided in English and Spanish.
And my next question would be, when it comes to students with disabilities, are they first placed under the disability section or under English, if they speak another language? Are they counted twice or are they counted once?
So they're counted in both subgroups.
Mhm.
So yes, they're counted twice.
Okay, thank you.
So our third goal, in terms of the students with disabilities, we're looking for, by the end of school year 2026, 60% of children with disabilities in grades 1st through 4th will meet their STAR SGP in reading from fall to spring.
So then again, we want to look at all of our students. So our 1st through 4th graders take what is called STAR reading. So we want to increase them to 60% of them, making their student growth percentile. And our kindergartners take a version of STAR called the STAR Early Literacy. And we want them, although they don't count, the goal is to boost them up for 1st grade so that all of data goes. So we're also looking at bringing our kindergartners up. Important to note, this test is offered in English and Spanish. For our dual language students, we're looking at both language scores. Because we don't want to say one language is more important to the other. We know that our students use both. And the goal of the program is bilingualism. So we really want that growth to be in both languages. Next slide, please. So one question we asked was, why 60? So first of all, we wanted a fun slogan. We wanted a goal, okay? We want something to shoot for. We had lots of conversation about you can't let drive in the left-hand lane under the speed limit. So we have a minimum of 60. That's taking our highest number right now and increasing it. We know that this is an ambitious goal. We also think it's obtainable. We also are planning to meet this goal, to get us off a targeted status, keep us off a targeted status, and keep MG out of the same goal point, the same plan. So our goal is 60. We set it high. We know we set it high, but we're ready to go with 60 minimum. So targeted status is a 4-year plan. The bonus is we've done the hard work now. Next year, we implement, we review, we implement, we revise our SIP plan. And the goal is to have quite the celebration, bigger than the boys volleyball teams here in October of 27. So we are asking you to join us in 60 minimum at Washington. Questions?
And the 60, that's the threshold for the proficiency? Is that what, or,
So 60 is growth.
okay,
We're looking at everything growth-based. The research shows that if you can get growth to 60 or higher, proficiency follows quickly behind. So that was another reason for the 60.
Can you expand a little bit on the chronic absenteeism and the plan to address that?
Yep. So our first plan is we've implemented what we call the district protocols. We're sending out letters, we're running monthly reports, we're calling families. Cindy has met with every parent of an IEP student at their IEP meetings and talked attendance. So we're working to make parents aware. The second plan is to make kids aware and make sure they want to come to school. So starting April 1st, surprise guys, well, you guys know. So we will be doing 3 strategies in the building. One of which is any child that's on the list or approaching the list is going to get some individual attention of, I'm so glad you're at school today. We love that you're here. Not, you weren't here yesterday. Where were you yesterday? Because what we want is them to want to be here. We're also implementing an incentive plan where we're going to, we've got attendance award stickers. They're going out to students that are here 4 more days a week. But probably the biggest piece is the phone calls we're making to those families and finding out why. We've discovered that we have a mom that works nights, goes to school she's a single mom doing the best she can and doing great. So what we said was just get him here. Better late than not at all. Okay. We have families that we're working with transportation on. We've purchased some alarm clocks. One little girl informed us that she needed a phone call from Mrs. Drake every morning to get herself to school. I only had to call 2 days. Mom informed me after that I didn't have to call anymore. So we're trying to be creative and get them here. We're sending out messaging about chronic absenteeism and just really working through all those pieces.
I noticed that you mentioned the systems to report the absences. Is there a better way to report the absences other than a call to a specific number? Where parents can go on the website and maybe type in the day that they're gonna be out or the reason? And then would that be something to
So the
track
bonus
down?
of the phone call is it gets the conversation. Okay, we also, when they call their child in with an illness, we are trying to track some of those things. For example, this fall, you all got word that hand, foot, and mouth disease went through Washington like crazy. When they called in sick, that was one of the questions we asked. That helps us with our cleaning procedures. Also, if we get 7 phone calls from Miss Duco's class, that they're all out with the stomach flu, we're gonna push in with a little extra heavy duty cleaning to help those things.
I know you said that the state counts any excused or unexcused absence as chronic, but is there a certain number that they have to reach before they're considered chronically absent, or is it just one?
10%, 17.
Okay.
Yeah, and the only thing that is not counted are hospitalizations with when you're available, open for home tutoring, homebound tutoring.
So that large number of students that you said is chronically absent, they're missing a significant amount of school.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
The 44, they are already well over 17.
Yeah.
The 87 that are approaching are between 12 and 16.
It was really nice to see that as the number one goal, because I think absenteeism across grade levels from
Yeah.
preschool through, 12th grade has been a major issue since the pandemic. People just don't come into school as much when they're sick, when we, used to go in all the time when we were sick.
So Sydney has said it really well, that we spent 3 years preaching,
Don't come.
don't come to school, don't come to school, don't come, stay home for 5 days, stay home for 10 days. Now we're past that and we're having to rework that. No, it's okay. Bring them back. It's okay if they have a runny nose. We're good. We got Kleenexes.
Yeah, I think that's so important because the goals after that don't mean a thing if they don't come into the building first. So it's great to see that as the number one target.
Thank you.
Do you have any data for those, that are constantly absent on the reasons why? Like some of the top ones where,
So vacations is a top one. Personal reasons, where they just call in for personal reasons. Illness are our 3 top ones. Vacation being the top one right now. Yeah,
So what is the definition for student with disabilities?
any child that has an IEP or a 504 plan.
So just out of curiosity, is there any correlation to those students and absenteeism?
Yeah, so many of them are absent. Many of our children with disabilities have fragile immune systems. That's associated with their disability. So can catch illness a little more frequently. And then they have all the other, same concerns as your general ed population with some take vacations, some are out for personal reasons, but also there's an underlying factor of many of them have fragile immune systems.
I'm struggling with, because I'm hearing you say that we want them to come to school sick, but then because they're sick, then they're going to cause other kids to be out more sick, and then that's only going to increase our problem. So I'm hearing kind of both things, and I'm trying to figure out how to reconcile that.
I think when they come, we just want to mitigate the spread. So, we can still come to school and wear masks, if you're sick and you've got a little sniffle, cough, that's a protective factor, from, spreading the germs to the other students, more frequent hand washing for the student that's coming to school that's a little under the weather. So there are, protocols we can put in place to support them being here without spreading the illness to others.
We're also
We're
working,
asking them to come when they're have fevers and vomiting.
No, I know, but I hear that illnesses are a cause and of this, but then if they're sick and they're counted as absent, I'd almost rather
So-
still encourage the sick kids to stay home so that all the other kids don't get sick, because
so
then it becomes.
really
bigger.
it's I have a cold.
Mhm.
We all get colds, we all function, we all come to board meetings or work, and getting that back in play.
Mhm.
Versus 3 years ago, if you had a cough, you stayed home. So I think we're just working at getting that fine line of when can you come to school versus when you can't.
And you said, how the state define, I heard that you said how the state defines it in terms of proficiency. What does that mean?
So with regards to chronic absenteeism, when we code absences, we code them as excused or unexcused. A great example is the state recently came out and said every child in the building gets 5 mental health days as excused absences. Those still, hurt us under chronic absenteeism. Because the state report card says all absences count. So it's not about excused or unexcused. It's not about if they called in or didn't call in.
You're out, you're out.
I mean, you have a fever, you're in Disney, it's still the same.
Religious holiday or not. It's the same, right?
Religious holidays are on the other list.
Okay.
Religious holidays and hospitalizations
Oh,
are on they're the
Okay.
two exceptions. But they have to call us and tell us they're out
right.
for the religious holiday, not say personal reasons.
Is that an automated system? It's been a long time since I've had to call and deal with Washington,
No.
so I don't know
Well,
how that, okay.
They leave a message.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, Peggy and Abby and Kathy and Kate answer the phones for those calls, but they also leave messages.
So if they just call and say my kid's gonna be out, somebody calls them back to find out which category to put them in, or how does that work?
Typically, if they call and say they're out, our messaging, Emily's has been tell us why. So you would call in and say, my kids are out today because they have a fever. That goes under it.
So if the goal is the same for the children with disability as not, why do we have the designation to separate them in the goal? There's like a sub A and sub B.
Because, so this gets submitted to ISB. We fell in this category because of our children with disabilities. It was suggested to us by the people coaching us through that to make sure we have them clearly addressed, not just lumped together.
So that hopefully, obviously, we will pass both goals of goal 2A and 2B. But if we don't, then at least we've got it designated.
Correct.
So that helps understand. Thank you.
Thank you for your work on the plan, all of you.
It's been a team effort, so, and will be, so.
I thought of one more question
Uh-huh.
that was something you said earlier. So you said that the proficiency goals on the student report card for first and second grade, since we don't count kindergarten, are judged based on the IAR scores
So
and MG for third and fourth.
Washington's house
Mhm.
is based on MG's third and fourth graders. The third graders give us our proficiency. The fourth graders give us our growth.
And is that's because first,
we don't
second
take
graders don't
IAR.
take IAR.
Correct.
And in more traditional elementary schools, first through fourth are in one school.
Correct.
Or the absenteeism is based off of Washington's first and second, not kindergarten.
Well, thank you. I'm sure we'll be back to give you an update on our 60 minimum.
Can I just, one quick comment, I'm so sorry, basing it off, I'm so sorry, basing it off on that. So are we looking at, are we looking at the old data from third and fourth grade to decide what we want to do for right now with
So
our
Our
current
goals,
first and second grade?
our goals are based on this year's STAR data on making it very current for right now.
It's the state's report card that's
The report card is the
the
one that's.
proficiency is behind, yeah, but that's not
Thank
what
you.
we're doing. Thank you. We'll hear from our superintendent for his report.
Good evening, everybody. In your board packet, the two items that I have, one is just a refresher. So it's roughly 2 years ago, the school board did approve the 23-24, 24-25 calendars. It's been a while since you've seen the 24-25 calendar, so I want to make sure to include that in the board packet so you had it. It's in an abbreviated format. We will be putting it back out in the format that we've had done in the past, we post on the website, where you actually get to see the calendar days and then the days listed below. So it'll still look in the same format. As part of the process, as we went through, we're looking at the 25-26 calendars. Dr. Kroll headed this process up. he collaborated with both school districts and went through the calendars. And the goal was simple, but it's taken time to get to this point, was to align the calendars for both 75 and 120, the very best that we could. So what as a result is what is before you tonight. So before both boards have been taken, it's coming to you tonight. We've been able to get the start date, end date, the breaks that take place aligned. We've also been able to align some of the institute days along with the incorporation of the emergency days that we have in place. So we do now have a calendar finally going forward next year or in two years for both school districts that would be aligned. And it's not just for 75 and 120. Want to highlight that. Myself, I work with the other superintendents, our elementary superintendents, and with the high school superintendents being Libertyville, Vernon Hills, Stevenson, Lake Forest. We're usually the ones that kind of set it for the high school conference. And then working with Hawthorne, Diamond Lake, and Fremont, make sure start dates are also similar so that if there's any overlap for any families or anything that happens, that we are consistent amongst each other. So the request before you today is the action would be to look at, to approve the 25-26 calendar as we're presenting tonight. The one thing I would want to make note on there, we do not have the actual Lincoln dates for the start for our students yet. As you remember, one of the things that we did this past year was we moved our student date back to align that building. So we anticipate we will be doing that again for this calendar, the 25-26. And once we have that, we'll bring that back to you like we did for this upcoming year for Lincoln.
One question that I had earlier in noting and looking at the calendar, both calendars that were in there, knowing that we approved the 24-25 one a couple years ago. Looking at that compared with the high school calendar that was just approved at their last meeting, I did note, and you may hear from other parents like me who brought it up too, that for 24-25, so next school year, our district, which is already approved, so this is not an action item tonight, but just pointing out, we will be getting out almost a week later than the high school this next year, which I hadn't realized that until looking at it. And so I can anticipate that's going to be a source of contention for some people. So just pointing that out, that obviously we're doing what we can to try to correct it so that with the approved calendar, once we approve it, assuming we approve tonight's, then it will be aligned then moving forward. So I just wanted to point that out to everyone else, because I hadn't really realized the discrepancy was that big. But it is what it is. Well, it's a week, but that's a big deal when you've got families and vacations, and that's because the way, like, especially here in the presentation we just had, I'm thinking there's gonna be families who then pull their kids out of the last week of elementary school because the high school is off. And that's gonna then impact our absenteeism scores and so, you know, and things. So I'm glad that we are aligning the calendars because I think that that's an important goal to try to also minimize that absenteeism piece. Because, you know, 4 school days is a lot of school.
The last item that was under my section was regards to special board meeting. There will be no need to take action on that because we needed to reschedule that due to other circumstances that were at play. So while it is on the agenda, we found out today that it would no longer be necessary at this time for a special board meeting to be on March 18th. So when we do get to the action items, we don't even need a motion or anything, you just move right past. That's all in my report. Good to say too for our wonderful Washington staff and NGP that's been here to help. Want to go home.
Let's see you.
Thank you.
Start early.
Have a good night, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good night, good night, good night.
Bye.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So I think we used to, and I think that was one of the press policies that got changed, and it didn't get updated on the spreadsheet, so don't worry about it. Okay, so moving on to our committee reports or committee updates. The first on the agenda is board policy. So tonight, because we had a couple meetings where we didn't do them, we're trying to get caught up and do a couple meeting sections, and so Eric just pointed out that one of the ones, is it one that you were assigned?
Yeah.
Okay, doesn't exist, and that's because when we created the spreadsheet initially, it was based on, I think, the older section, and when we do press policy updates, sometimes some of them get stricken or renamed or renumbered. So if it doesn't exist, obviously you don't have to do it. And I was looking ahead to the sections, and Georgie and I'll have to take a look at the policy, the full policy manual, and then update these, because it doesn't make sense how section 4 only has one section for July. That doesn't sound right. So I'll have to look at that and see what's going on with that for us to assign. But obviously we've got the joint board meetings for June and July, so we probably won't be doing those meetings anyway. So I would think before we leave here tonight, we are going to need to pick, our things for April, and I would propose to do for May as well. I know for a fact I will not be here for the May meeting. I don't know yet if I may not be here for the April meeting either, because it's Passover, and I haven't been able to get blessing from my family to know what we're doing with that, to know if I'll be missing both meetings. So Ray may be leading both meetings for the next 2 months, in which case, Georgie, you'll have to lead the policy stuff. So we will need to sign up for those before we but, for today, starting with section 19. We've got Georgie starting first with 7215.
Yes. So just like I did last week, I needed to figure out in layman's term, what does this policy mean? And this looks like it's the district working with enrolling and transferring records of students with the custody of the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services. When they changed school, we had 4 services that our policy stated. Health services have to be by a qualified nurse, of course. Educational, psychological testing as needed by the school psychologist. We need parental consent. School social workers services, again, parental consent for regular or even continuing services, and then offering guidance and school counseling services. While we have protocols to respond to students with social, emotional, and mental health needs that affect their learning, the district assumes no liability for preventing, identifying, or treating such needs. And then our policy also stated about Aaron's Law to ensure that each school has a student support committee identifying counseling options for students affected by sexual abuse and grooming behaviors. So that's the gist of it.
Marcella?
So on mine, talks a little bit about exceptions for physical education, which I think is very interesting to read. If you guys haven't had a chance to, please do. States if the parent or wants to excuse someone, a child, to participate in physical education, they have to present an appropriate excuse signed either by a parent, guardian, or from a person licensed under the Medical Practice Act. Talks a little bit more about if the child has to be excused due to religious practice, they would have to bring something related to clergy or a religious member that would be signing that as well. And something else that mentions or talks about is specifically to special education. If during the time of the child's physical education, if the IEP team decides to have some support services during their physical education, that would have to be stated under their IEP, and the parent has to agree that they're doing this determination. They're gonna be receiving the services versus providing the physical education piece. And this is for 3 to 8. Or if they have, or under their IEP and mention specifically that they are participating in an adaptive athletic program outside of school, and they need to have documentation for this as well. Let me see. I think that those were the few things or highlights from my piece.
Thank you. And then Al?
I have the administering medicines to students. And my interpretation is this is a lot of it is to protect the school. So that things are not done inappropriately. No district employee can administer any medicine until the SMA school medication authorization form has been filled out. Students cannot take meds during school or activities unless it's a critical situation. I would guess that would include like if they were out on an activity and they got a bee sting and they needed to use their EpiPen, because they were having trouble breathing, that might happen. But nothing in the policy prohibits any school employee from providing emergency assistance if it's needed, including administering medication. This policy should be and is in the student handbook. The student should not possess any prescription or non-prescription nor consume drugs. The student can self-administer an EpiPen or asthma medication as long as the form has been completed. There's no liability incurred as a result of self-administration. The school can maintain a supply of asthma medication and have a list of trained personnel, should have a list of trained personnel that can administer it. They also can maintain a supply of opioid antagonists, Narcan, and it can be used if the student has OD. Here's the fun part, I guess, in a way. Medical cannabis may be used, but it is an infused product. It can't be smoking a blunt. It would be gummies or something like that. But the SMA form medical cannabis part must be filled out. And a nurse or administrator must be properly trained to administer this. Valid registration cards are required to be on file that from the state or government that says that you can do that. And there is no discipline for that use.
Ray, orders to forego life-sustaining treatment.
Okay. 7275, orders to forego life-sustaining treatment. So written orders from the parents or guardians to forego life-sustaining treatment for their child must be signed by the student's physician and given to the superintendent. And this policy shall be interpreted in accordance with the Illinois Healthcare Surrogate Act. And whenever an order to forego life-sustaining treatment is received, the superintendent shall convene a multidisciplinary team that includes, when appropriate, the student's parents, other medical professionals, first responders for the building, school nurse, clergy, if is requested by the family, other individuals that could provide support to the student, and school personnel designated by the superintendent. So the team shall determine the guidelines to be used by school staff members in the event the child suffers a life-threatening episode at school or a school event. And district personnel shall convey orders to forego life-sustaining treatment to the appropriate emergency or healthcare providers.
Thank you. Emily is not able to be here tonight, but she had, I think, the shortest one that is communicable and chronic infectious disease. So students with or carrying communicable or chronic infectious disease have all the same rights and privileges and services provided by law and our Board of Education policy. So the superintendent will develop procedures to safeguard these rights while also managing health and safety concerns. Not that we have any experience in doing that. So that's the short and sweet there. Mine is the next one with anaphylaxis prevention, response and management program. So recognizing that students who may have, and be susceptible to anaphylaxis responses, increase their risk by coming to school. All the different things that may, bring that on are listed in here, fish, latex, milk, shellfish, tree nuts, eggs, etc. It describes, what defining that means and what then the superintendent designee shall develop and implement a response program based on a model policy that ISB has put forth, ensuring that staff members have the appropriate training, implementing the one that we just went through with administering medications to students, which provides that our school can maintain unassigned EpiPens and inhalers to use in the events that somebody either doesn't have one on file or didn't know they needed one and experienced an emergency. And you'll notice we provided to parents and guardians to make them aware of it. This gets updated on a regular basis with press, as laws change and such. But otherwise, it's one of the ones that we review every 3 years as part of the press conference. And then.
But I do apologize. I do not have policy 7290 prepared. I looked at the spreadsheet and saw March next to section 20 and one right there. So
That's okay. That's
ready to
also-
go for section 20.
That's okay. That's okay.
I would like to though do suicide and depression awareness at the next meeting, if that's okay with everybody, because that's too important of a topic for me to try to just fake now or to skip. So I do apologize.
Sorry, we were doubling up, so I apologize. That's okay. All right, so then moving on down the list, extracurricular activities, Georgie. It's 7,300.
Yeah. Our policy states that the students must meet requirements. There were 6 of them that were listed. Beginning with academic criteria, obviously parent guardian providing permission and waiver of responsibility, current physical, proof of insurance, agrees to follow conduct. The same with parents and guardians, and to comply with all the sponsoring associations that they might be competing in. That's pretty much it. And then, of course, the district's gonna maintain records. And then that one leads into student athlete concussion and head injury. We do have a Youth Sports Concussion Safety Act, which has quite a bit of pieces to it. We have a concussion oversight team, and they established that return to play protocol for activities and for the classroom. Student parents have to sign the information before any athletic participation. Pretty much a student can be immediately removed from athletics, even like from a coach. We don't have to wait for a trainer to say that. And of course, we have to follow the requirements related to the protocol in the IHSA.
Marcella, your turn.
So mine is focusing on restrictions on publication. This is specific to elementary school and it's very, very detailed because obviously this is a huge issue even in elementary, right? Some of the information that called my attention, and if you are able to go in there, some of the wording, I'm not even sure. I had to read several times to kind of understand what it meant. But of course, it does mention that the publications and productions and websites are part of the curriculum and are not public forums. So anything that you see like Facebook that's specific to the district belongs to us, created by us. We are, and all of that content that is created and shared has to follow some type of responsible journalism. And for the non-school sponsored publications accessed or distributed at the campus, there are specifics on, and it could be any type of publication like a written, electronic print, audiovisual material, printed digital files, all of that websites and all of that information. They should not cause any disruption. They need to be endorsed by the school district for them to use that. And students are prohibited from creating or accessing at school any publication that will cause disruption, violates the rights of others, socially inappropriate, promoting illegal drug use. Number 5 is the one that I had a little bit of questions on. It says it's distributed in kindergarten through 8th grade, primarily prepared by non-students, unless it's being used for school purposes. Wasn't sure specifically what it meant to that degree, but if we can come back to that, or I can go more in depth and try to do my research on that little piece. And when it comes to non-school sponsored publications, access or distribution off campus, they are still, if they could be in trouble or in misconduct or be disciplined for distributing a publication that causes disruption or substantial disruption to a school operation. Number 1, or number 2, interferes with the rights of others or staff members. So even if it's not on campus. And last statement mentions that cyberbullying will be considered the same and should follow the same as bullying, according to policy, and then it states which policy and should follow those rules. So that's good information to know.
So looking at the number 5 that you were asking about, I think it starts by saying students are prohibited from creating, distributing, or accessing in school any publication that is distributed in K through 8th grade and is primarily prepared by non-students unless it's being used for school purposes. So I think that's basically saying they don't want like school publication, like if you have a school newspaper, that's fine because that's theoretically being prepared by students. But if it's not being prepared by students, they don't want it to be used and distributed unless it's being used for school purposes. So
somewhere else outside of.
I think they want stuff that's either going to be within the curriculum or that's going to be used as part of a lesson for school purposes that a teacher has created, and it says nothing shall be preventing outside sources from being used as citations, it's et cetera. But I think they don't want like propaganda being used by, if they're not students,
putting, of anything, that could be all kinds of different things that could fall with that unless it's, being used for
For
school
school
purposes.
purposes. Yeah, now I understand it. Thank you.
But obviously, you know, I'm sure a lot goes into this because obviously since all the kids have Chromebooks and, you know, then they can access a lot of things. But obviously we have technology in place that doesn't allow everything necessarily to be accessed on this Chromebook by the students, so. But this is the policy that sort of creates that. Okay, and then fundraising activities, that's also Marcella, 325.
Alrighty. So I didn't do this one.
Oh, that's
I
okay.
didn't see this one on my chart. I think I just went for the top one. I do apologize, and I'll have it along with our next one.
That's okay. I mean, I think that's okay. I mean, basically, it's just saying that we're not allowed to ask students to participate in fundraising activities unless it's a school-sponsored, student organization or like PTO or booster clubs, you know, are doing it. So, you know, during school activities or on school grounds. And then in deciding what the school is going to sponsor and do, there's a you know, listing that the superintendent designee shall manage it along with, all of this. It's gotta be voluntary. It can't conflict with, you know, other things they're doing, you know, et cetera. So there's just a lot of rules that are in place that at least govern it. I don't know that it's critical we get into all the nitty gritty on what that is. But knowing that we do have a policy that does that. And it's not that we're sending home fundraisers every other week or anything. And if we are, it's voluntary. And not to do door to door solicitation. All right.
I've got the next couple.
Okay.
The first one on our list is policy 7330, which is no longer part of our policy, so I'm not gonna do that one.
You don't have to.
If you are interested in reading what it was, it is in the District 120 policy, so you can get some information there. I'm not gonna talk about it now. 7340 is with regard to student records. The main purpose of this policy is to first define what student records are. It puts limits on districts' use and release of records. It grants privacy rights to the students, guardians, and even some state agencies for those rights. For those records. An example would be like DCFS. And it also designates an official records custodian. So with regard to defining what student records are, it states that a student record is any written or recorded information by which a student may be identified individually and is maintained or possessed by the district. So some information could be released if it is not directly tied to a name and the student can't be identified by that information. But if it is going to be information that's identifiable, then that's considered a student record. Then with regards to the limits on the use and release of records, long story short, all records are confidential and they cannot be released except by reasons supported by state and federal laws. With regard to privacy rights, students, guardians, and even some of those state agencies have the right to inspect, copy, challenge the school records. They also have the right to opt out of the release of those records if they choose, but they have to go through a process and communicate that to the district. And records for special education students must relate to the provision of services. And then the official records of custodian. Currently in the policy, it says Patty Delosier, and you know, with some of the changes, I just thought we should double check and make sure, is that still her or does that need to be changed? It says Patty DeLozier is the official records custodian.
For 75, she is.
Okay, so it's all good then.
Yep.
The next policy is policy 7345. This is the use of educational technologies, student data privacy and security. The main purpose of this policy is putting limits on the use of technology and student data. It designates a privacy officer, defines relevant information for that policy, and then also designates authorized person to enter into agreements that don't require board approval. With regards to educational technologies, any technologies used in the district must meet the district's educational objectives as identified in board policies 610 and 640. Those are all with regards to our educational philosophy and objectives and our curriculum. It states that the collection and maintenance of student data could be used by district or vendors for certain educational technologies, but must follow federal and state laws. And that there should be no sale, rental, lease, or trade of student records. The policy, or sorry, the privacy officer is our chief of staff, so I believe it's Ms. McCreary. With regards to the definitions of relevant information, the policy defines what covered information means, and it really pertains to information that personally identifies a student. In relation to the last policy that I reported on, it defines what operator contracts are and then also sets security standards.
Thank you. I'm gonna go through and finish it here for Emily. So, community relations, connection with the community. So the board president is the official spokesperson for the board. The superintendent is the district's chief spokesperson. And the superintendent shall plan and implement a district public relations program that shall fulfill 8 different requirements and shall include 4 different things, all of which, regular news releases, news conferences, interviews, publications, and such. And obviously we have a coordinator for that as well, who is not named specifically in here, but we all know that Peter does that for us. Community engagement, this kind of sets it and defines it. It says the board, in consultation with the superintendent, shall determine the purpose and objective of any community engagement initiative. So, says the board will commit to the determined purpose and objective and then provide information about that. And then the superintendent will identify the tools and tactics for the board's purpose and at least annually prepare a report for the community engagement initiative, and then a final report on that. It just says periodically we'll review this and whether we're doing that. I know we've set up a community outreach committee that is going to be looking and doing this and getting into this, I think, a little bit further as they develop that further. 820 is the community use of school facilities. So the school facilities are available for community organization during non-school hours, as long as it doesn't interfere with the school function or affect any of the safety of students or employees, and doesn't impact the property or add liability for the district. The school always has, first priority over all other uses. And we reserve the right to cancel anything that previously was scheduled if something comes up. And it has to require the prior approval of the superintendent or designee. Anyone on our premises has to abide by the conduct rules at all times. And it specifies costs, if it's a student group, a school-related organization, a government agency, or a nonprofit, they can do it for no cost during regular staffed hours, and then fees and costs shall apply for any other hours doing that, and then there's a fee schedule. The superintendent shall prepare, subject to annual approval by the board. I'm not sure in what format that usually comes, but that's the process. And then community relations, she also had that one, advertising and distributing materials in school, provided by non-school related entities. So this is similar to that other one, is that the community can't provide things that'll disrupt
the education process or violate any privacy rights or infringe on any trademarks. Or be obscene, vulgar, indecent, etc. Nothing shall be posted or distributed in the backpack mail and such without, following this policy. It specifies, that, the superintendent can establish procedures for community educational, charitable, recreational, or similar group organizations that want to put stuff in. And it designates some of those details. Commercial companies and political candidates are prohibited from advertising school on school grounds. And I think Al had 8:30.
It's 8:30 is visitors to and conduct on school property. School property is defined as district and school buildings, grounds, parking areas, vehicles used for school purposes, and any location used for a school board meeting, school athletic event, or other school-sponsored or school-sanctioned activities. And a visitor is any person other than an enrolled student or district employee. As it states, and what common practice that we follow is everybody must sign in at the office, get a visitor's badge, if they're going to be visiting the schools. They need to, if they want to meet with a staff employee, is recommended and ask that they make an appointment. There are conferences, how we have conferences and during outside school hours and that, so that's that. Request to access the building has to go through the superintendent or designee. We expect that there's mutual respect and stability. There's a list of things that are prohibited, and as a lot of it has to do with maybe fighting, threatening, being unsportsmanlike, using vulgar language.
Board members are included by that, by the way, so nobody else can strike, injure, threaten, harass, or intimidate a staff member or board member.
Correct. A lot of this probably applies to like athletic events and stuff like that, where you may have a parent that, or even family member that is not happy with the way things are going. And even if it's not directed necessarily at a school person, you say if it's at a basketball game and they are harassing the official or in any athletic event, that is unacceptable, and they could be asked to leave the property or the building or whatever. No alcohol, no smoking, no medical cannabis should be used unless by the board, following the board policy. But I would hope that we don't even have to cross that bridge. Shouldn't act in a risky behavior, which includes rollerblading, roller skating, or skateboarding. Or violate other district policies and regulations. So, and then it also addresses convicted child sex offender. State law, as stated, prohibits a child sex offender from being present on school property or loitering within 500 feet of the property where there's children under the age of 18 are present. There is exception if a parent or guardian needs to attend a school meeting, a conference, or that. They will need to contact the school. The school needs to be made aware that they are a registered sex offender, child sex offender. They can follow up with that meeting by permission to be present. If at the board meeting, superintendent or superintendent's designee will make that decision. If permission is granted, the superintendent or board president shall provide the details of the offender's upcoming visit to the building principal. In all cases, superintendent or designee who is a certified employee shall supervise a child sex offender whenever that offender is in a child's vicinity. So basically, they should be escorted around, is the way I interpret that. Any staff member in enforcement, any staff member may request the identification from any person on the school property. Refusal to provide that information is a criminal act. Building principal or designee shall seek the immediate removal of the person who refuses to provide or request the requested identification. As far as procedures to deny future admission to athletic or extracurricular events. Before any person may be denied, the person has the right to a hearing before the board. Superintendent may refuse person admission pending such a hearing. Superintendent or designee must provide the person with a hearing notice delivered or sent by certified mail with return receipt requested at least 10 days before the board hearing date. Hearing date, time, and place of the board hearing, description of the prohibited conduct, and the proposed time period that admission to school events will be denied, and instructions on how to waive the hearing.
Essentially, they can appeal it to the board, and then the details are all there. Community relations, accommodating individuals with disabilities. Gonna take this on. Okay, so accommodating individuals with disabilities. Essentially, it provides that the assistant superintendent of student services is the designated coordinator, and that we have to provide an opportunity for individuals with disabilities to participate in all school-sponsored events, programs, etc. And we have an obligation to provide aids or benefits or services in order to accommodate that. And then auxiliary aids and services when necessary to allow them to participate. It provides the policies in here for doing so, that individuals need to notify the superintendent or the building principal if they have a disability and need accommodations, and then the policy we followed to follow up with that. 80 gifts to the districts. So Board of Education, well, anyone may give us a gift. It has to be gifts from any education foundation or other entities or individuals, but the gifts have to adhere to all of these policies here. So the board can accept it if it's less than $500. The superintendent or designee can accept it, and they can get a pre-acceptance commitment before identifying any district if there was something that's coming up or a fundraising attempt, etc. It's got to have a stated purpose for why we're doing it or what we're doing it for. Such that when we had gifts that helped prepare, like the Tiger News Network stuff, I mean, that had a designated gift, and then it was pre-done. It wasn't just a surprise. To permit the district to maintain equity among learning centers, and provide extracurricular opportunities, be viewpoint neutral. So we're not, superintendent is supposed to manage the process so that we're not, being part of any specific viewpoint or political point. And comply with all laws applicable to the district that are set forth. So equal treatment to all individuals, whether they're donating or being accepted, but upon acceptance, all gifts become the district's property. And acceptance of a gift is not an endorsement of any particular program. So, again, these are things like to the school. And then parent organizations and booster clubs. Obviously recognizing their invaluable resources for the schools, and they have no administrative authority and cannot determine policy, but we welcome suggestion and assistance from them. We can recognize them as a board and permit them to use the district's name, schools, logos, et cetera, for their purposes. And generally granted if they're a 501c3. It's got to enhance the student's experience, education, and operate under rules and procedures. Agree to adhere to all board policies and administrative procedures, basically follow all the rules. They have to be open and unrestricted, meaning they can't just allow certain parents in. They have to allow anybody to help and maintain their and protect their own finances, and recognition that any money given to a school cannot be earmarked for a particular expense, and the school, has an obligation to use it as they need. We can also permission to use any of those above names, logos, et cetera, can be pulled back at any time if need be. And then parental involvement. Obviously, we want to have a collaborative relationship with our students, families, and the district, and it sets forth 8 different pieces to the, keeping them involved about the education, encouraging them to be involved, establishing effective two-way communication, seeking input from parents on school-related issues, informing parents on how they can assist in their child's learning, provide training opportunities and education resources and school contact to support the families. The superintendent's supposed to report annually how they do this. And then, yes, okay. And then Ray, you had relations with other organizations and agencies, 8100.
Yeah, 8100 relations with other organizations and agencies. District shall cooperate with other organizations and agencies, including but not limited to the county health department, law enforcement agencies, fire authorities, planning authorities, zoning authorities, IEMA, other civil defense agencies, and other school districts.
Last but not least, public suggestions and concerns.
Yeah, public suggestions and concerns. Board of Education is interested in receiving suggestions and concerns from members of the community. Individuals can make suggestions or express concern by contacting any of the district school office. Community members who email the districts or district employees or board members are expected to abide by the standards in Board Policy 6235 electronic networks, and should, to the extent possible, limit their communications to relevant individuals. All suggestions or concerns shall be referred to the appropriate level staff member or district administrator who is most able to respond in a timely manner. Each concern or suggestion shall be considered on its merit. Any individual who is not satisfied may file a grievance under the Board Policy 2260, Uniform Grievance Procedure. The board encourages but does not require individuals to follow the channels of authority prior to filing a grievance. Neither this policy nor the Uniform Grievance Procedure create an independent right to a hearing before the board.
And we welcome public comment. How it goes, and then try to defer it to the chain of command. All right. So looking ahead then to April, like some people started filling out. Okay. So Georgie, Alan, Marcella have filled out. Looks like Eric is grabbing a couple.
Sure.
You can, go ahead. Eric, are you taking this top? That's fine, then I'll just throw Ray in. Um,
04.
Yeah, so this would be for April. Ray, you're doing 2:10 and 2:20. And I'll put myself as the first one, but I don't know if I'll be here, but we'll see. The school district's legal staff.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody can handle that, I think. That's fine. I mean, you can take it because I may not be here. You have fun. I took on a few extras tonight, so we're good. All right. And that'll handle us for April, and then I definitely won't be here for May. But, it's on board member conflict of interest, ethics and gift bans, qualifications, terms, et cetera. It's that time of year to start that over again in May. We started with this a couple years ago, so. You guys can fill that out now, or, or do that at the end of the next board meeting. Then we'll plan to take June and July off when we do our joint meetings. Right. Finally got through policy.
Where's a sign up?
Right here. It's on the spreadsheet. Is that what you're talking about? So it's that spreadsheet that I shared with you did you try to get through?
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you.
Well, we tried the other day. I think he can't access it through his phone because it's signed up through a different Google account.
Oh,
But we'll try afterward through your Chromebook. You should be able to do it through your Chromebook, but we didn't have that the other day when we were trying to do it. So we'll figure it out.
I'll send you an email. Do that one.
All right. And then moving on through committee updates, Finance Advisory Committee.
No report.
Shared Services.
We planned on doing a presentation, but unfortunately we weren't able to get it prior to the meeting, so. We'll follow up in April. You okay?
I'll just add, it gives us a little extra time to get through section 1. If you haven't, that book read on their behalf, see if you can get through section 1.
There's, can I add to that? There's a great, interview that I found where he's on Leader Chat with Jeff Rose, if anybody listens to that podcast. I know that as a reader, I always like to hear the author's voice to kind of get, familiar with them. And it's really good. So if anybody's interested, I can send you that information.
Thank you.
Don't worry about that.
Why don't you can you send that out just as a one-way communication
Yes.
to all of the board members?
Yep.
And then don't reply all, but
Yes.
one way. Yeah. Thanks. All right, and then community outreach.
I'm having a hell of a time trying to get the information.
Okay.
So I sent everything to the guy from Arlington Heights who was at the conference.
Okay.
And he referred me to the woman who was at the conference, who was from the state.
Mhm.
So I got a hold of her and said I wanted to get the information. And she said, well, I'll send it to you, but you have to pay for it.
Ah.
I said, well, I already paid for it when I was at the conference. She said, no, that don't count.
Oh. Okay.
It was a school district?
No, the state school association.
Right.
You don't mind sharing the information with me?
Yeah,
Let me see.
I was a little taken back.
Yeah.
Okay. Representative updates, the STEAM Foundation, unfortunately, they weren't able to get the Mundance thing done for March 22nd as they had hoped, so that's being put off. And we have a meeting this week. I don't know what dates they're proposing now to do it, because they were trying to shift away from May because May is so busy with everything else, but I don't know. There was a scheduling issue with something at the high school and they couldn't get back from the person, so I don't know. But we do have the pizza throwdown that's coming up on April 4th. I know that all went out today on social media and such. Advertising, they're giving away some family 4-packs and they're doing a cheaper price in advance. So to try to stop the backlog of all the people at the door doing it, they're offering a cheaper price if you order the tickets in advance.
This
So
is the one where you get the trial.
you get to
different-
try all the different
Okay.
pizza, yeah, and then vote on
That
them.
was fun.
Yeah,
Did it
so it's
last-
Thursday, April 4th, so that'll be coming up, and it's the other one of the big fundraisers for the year, and it's a lot of fun. Without asking for lots of money, it's just really dinner, so.
Did you say where it was gonna be held at by chance, Christie?
Sandberg.
I'm just gonna head in there.
Yep.
Okay.
It's in the multi-purpose room, and,
Oh, that's right. I got that. Mixed up the races. Yep.
yeah, no, that's fine, yep, so, a little more low-key, and all done in one night there, so. See it all?
CEDAW, we had a governing board meeting, last week, Wednesday. They announced, two interim superintendent hires that will be, I think their contract is just 1 year as they begin their official superintendent search. One of them wanted me to say hi to Dr. Myers.
Judy.
Yep. And then, they also approved the sale of South School to the District 75, so that is official and done.
Good to hear. Okay, so does anybody have anything from the consent agenda they would like removed from the consent agenda before we proceed on through that? Okay, hearing no motion to do that, hearing no motion to remove anything. I would move that the Board of Education of Mundelein Elementary School District 75 approve the consent agenda as proposed.
Second,
Secretary, please call the roll.
Ingersoll,
Aye.
Billetier, aye. Aguirre.
Aye.
Thurin,
Aye.
Hitzke.
Aye.
Carl, absent. Rose.
Okay, moving on to the other action items.
Can I interrupt you before you
Yeah.
start?
Yeah.
So one of the action items that I had under my section was to not look to approve the special board meeting. So Shane, who has been coordinating our efforts to have a special meeting for that purpose, for expulsion hearing. And we've received word that, they'd like to continue on with the original plan. So I'm back in front of you as a board. I'd like to request that you do consider and approve the March 18th special board meeting with the purpose of it being, finalizing an expulsion hearing process.
Okay, so it is back on the request.
Yes, ma'am.
Understood. All right. Put that all back into our calendar. Okay, starting first though with the audit report. So I move that the Board of Education of Mundelein Elementary School District 75 accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the audit and annual financial report, AFR, as presented.
Second.
Secretary.
Ingersoll.
Aye.
Hitzke.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye. You can have the next one, right?
Carl, absent. Thurin,
Aye.
Billetier, aye. Aguirre.
Aye. Okay. I move that the Board of Education of Mundelein Elementary School District 75 accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the 24-25 staffing plan as presented.
Second.
Secretary?
Ingersoll.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Carl, absent. Hitzke.
Aye.
Aguirre.
Aye.
Billetier, aye. Thurin.
Aye.
I move that the Board of Education of Mundelein Elementary School District 75 accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the Washington Early Learning Center SIP plan as presented.
Second.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Ingersoll.
Aye.
Billetier, aye. Aguirre.
Aye.
Thurin.
Aye.
Hitzke.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Carl, absent.
I move that the Board of Education of Mundelein Elementary School District 75 accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the proposed 25-26 school calendar as presented.
Second.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Ingersoll.
Aye.
Hitzke.
Aye.
Thurin.
Aye.
Aguirre.
Aye.
Rose. Aye. Carl, absent. Pelletier, aye.
And then I move that the Board of Education of Mundelein Elementary School District 75 accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve a special board meeting on Monday, March 18th, 2024 at the East District Office.
Second.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Finger eye.
Aye.
Rose. Aye. Carl, absent. Kinsky.
Aye.
Durin.
Aye.
Pelletier, aye. Aguirre.
Aye.
You will have a quorum, correct?
Well, I guess we won't know until we get there. I have not, was not in charge of soliciting that, but.
We're good, okay.
Uh-huh.
So tied.
We do have a quorum,
An anticipated quorum.
I'm not gonna be.
Okay. That it will be at 4:30, correct? Yes. Okay. All right, then. I move that the Board of Education meeting will now adjourn at 8:24 and enter into executive session for the purposes of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, and dismissal of a specific employee of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. And also for discussion of minutes, meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act, whether for the purpose of approved by the body of the minutes or the semi-annual review of the minutes as mandated by statute.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed?
Sorry, no.
Okay, so just to reflect, we went back into open session at 9:08 PM and we redid the roll call. Nobody has left or come to the meeting since before. So, moving down then, I move that we, accept I'm sorry, here it is, you just gave it to me. I move that the Board of Education of Mundelein Elementary School District 75 accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the executive session meetings for minutes for February 27th, 2024.
Second.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Finger eye.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Carl, absent. Kinsky.
Aye.
Durin.
Aye.
Pelletier, aye. Aguirre.
Aye. Okay, so. President's prerogative, we're. Just to. That's just the process, right? Okay, so the process, we have, as part of the consent agenda tonight, appointed a hearing officer. And we had the special meeting, we'll all get a packet, with a report of the meeting, that then we'll, address and hear in closed session at our special meeting. For confidential reasons, as an exception to the Open Meetings Act. I understand we will have some people that aren't going to be here, and that's okay, but there's time constraints that we have to do the meeting within a period of time in order to, address the needs of that. So we'll, I imagine everyone will still get the packet, even if they aren't going to attend. And you're certainly welcome to individually reach out to me if you have any questions, about that. I will do my best to address, or you can address them to Dr. Myers as well. And we'll go from there. And then thereafter, we won't have another meeting until April 23rd, since spring break and all that. So hope everyone has any plans or good plans and, enjoys a little time off. And like I said, I will let both Georgie and Ray know if I'm going to be here at that meeting or not. Since it's Passover, and we'll go from there.
Just in regards to expulsion, the packet that you get, and talking with the hearing officer, said should be able to have it done no later than Monday morning. So what I plan on doing is once we've received it, definitely be forwarding it to you, and I'll text you so that you know it's there. And it may be a short turnaround, I guess is my point. So it at least gives you some time to be able to read through it.
It's the only anticipated agenda item for that meeting, so,
Yes.
so it should be. I'm into that. I'm trying to do it a little earlier in the day so that we can accommodate. Yeah, so does anyone else have any other items they want to see on future agendas?
Not on the agenda, but a reminder that tomorrow night's Lakes Division
Tomorrow is
dinner at.
the lakes,
Pardon?
yes, it's at the Mundelein
Yeah, it's at Doubletree.
Doubletree, the quarterly division dinner for the IASB. That is tomorrow night. So, I think it's like 6. Look at- Okay, 6 o'clock.
You're so generous, Ray.
So, then, you know, if everyone can come to the pizza throwdown, that'd be great, but if not, totally understand. All that. But, and no other items?
Say there was something sent out about them.
They put it all on Facebook. I can get the information, the link, and send it to email. Cause I know they're doing it, off tree, yeah, so. I haven't bought mine yet, cause I think it just went out today,
Oh.
so I don't have it yet, but we'll get that. And I can get that sent out to everybody. And, you know, as always, they're always looking for people to help, but not a big deal. It's, you know, they give little pieces of pizza and you get to go around and vote. I think they're doing the voting. I'm not in charge of it, so I don't remember. I think they're doing it digitally, so it's a little different rather than doing slips of paper and having to count.
Do they need me to help cook pizza?
You know, to talk to the pizza people on that one, and they're gonna be working with Dave, I think, to get some warmers and stuff out there in the kitchen. Yeah. So, all right, well, and like I said, I definitely will not be here in May, but I'll be here for June and July. So I'll be at Disney World. So,
Don't forget the souvenirs.
I'm sorry.
Don't forget the souvenirs for.
That you said sue the mirrors, and I went, what? Sorry. That's sorry.
Take them for everything they got.
Yeah, I think so. So we're, if there's no further business to come before the board, I move that the meeting is adjourned at 9:16. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?